TV18.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shereen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you tonight. India's largest bank, State Bank of India, beats estimates in the fourth quarter. Asset quality and margins are the best in 8 years. CEO Dinesh Khara says the new rules proposed by the RBI on higher loan provisioning is fiction and one should wait for it to become a reality. The Indian Banks Association has asked for more time to comply. ITC meets estimates in Q4, cigarette revenue and volume growth in double digits. FMCG business grows at nearly 20%. Hotel revenue has doubled. Indigo's parent Interglobe Aviation posts a profit of more than 900 crore rupees in Q4 thanks to higher demand for air travel. Revenue rises 75% compared to Q4 last year, which was marred by COVID-19. Margins above 20%.
India is an absolutely critical country for AWS. It's very important to our future health, our future growth.
Amazon plans to invest nearly $13 billion into its cloud business in India by 2030. The global CEO of Amazon Web Services, Adam Selipsky, says the company wants to democratize generative AI technology and is making large bets on artificial intelligence. That's an exclusive. Brinking international transactions through credit cards under the liberalised remittance scheme creates waves. The Finance Ministry defends the move, saying some individuals exceeding limits and there should be no differential treatment between debit and credit cards. Also add that LRS spend has doubled for $24 billion in the last 2 years. The government may cut demand incentives for electric two-wheelers but considers increasing the overall allocation under the FAME scheme by 75%. No decision yet on extending the scheme beyond March 2024. Sources say the probe into FAME violations nearing completion and subsidies will be dispersed in the next 2 to 3 days. That's an exclusive. Global retail giant Walmart's first quarter earnings ahead of estimates. Double-digit growth in Flipkart and Walmart's China and Mexico divisions lead to strong international sales. Another group company, PhonePe, crosses an annualized payment volume of $1 trillion. Kiren Rijiju moved out of the Law Ministry after a 2-year stint marked by frequent run-ins with the judiciary. Is assigned the Earth Sciences Ministry. The Minister of State Arjun Ram Meghwal, the new Law Minister, gets independent charge of the portfolio. SP Baghel, also replaced as MOS Law, shifted to the Health Ministry. Congress top brass chooses Siddaramaiah as the new Karnataka Chief Minister, ending a 5-day deadlock after an emphatic election win. DK Shivakumar, named the Deputy Chief Minister, will continue as the state party chief. The Supreme Court upholds laws allowing traditional bull taming sport Jallikattu and bullock cart races in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. Also says Jallikattu issue is debatable, calls on lawmakers to decide on the matter. Well, on to the day's trading action. A volatile day has seen the markets ending in the red in expiry week. The Nifty and the Sensex fell 0.25%. FMCG stocks were the biggest drag today. Financials outperformed with the Nifty Bank ending mildly in the green. In the commodities space, crude prices remaining steady after gaining overnight on optimism over oil demand and signs of a breakthrough in the U.S. debt ceiling talks. Meanwhile, gold prices inching lower as the dollar held firm and optimism over the U.S. debt ceiling talks reduce the metal safe haven appeal. The number of Americans filing for unemployment benefits last week falling to a 2-year low. This after fraudulent claims in Massachusetts boosted the data in previous weeks. Continuing claims filed by Americans who are consecutively receiving unemployment benefits dipped by 6,000 from the previous week. Back home, the big earnings. State Bank of India reporting a robust growth in Q4, beating estimates on all parameters. Net profit grew 83%. Net interest income rose nearly 30%. The bank's asset quality and margins the best in 8 years. The bank reported a strong loan growth in Q4. Corporate loans grew nearly 13%. Retail loans up 18% year-on-year. CEO Dinesh Khara told CNBC-TV18 the new rules proposed by the RBI on higher loan provisioning is fiction and one should wait for them to become a reality. The Indian Banks Association has asked for more time to comply with the proposed rules.
You made an interesting statement. Expected credit loss is fiction at this point of time. It is not a reality. But the fact of the matter is that RBI is in discussion. The final guidelines are expected. And we're seeing your peers already start to make provisions. For instance, you have an extreme at one hand, like somebody like a Canara Bank making 4 to 5% kind of a provision. And then you have Bank of Baroda on the other hand talking about 1.5%. What has been your initial assessment? What will be the impact?
See, the fact of the matter is that ECL is eventually going to be an outcome of how the book is already. If you look at our credit cost, current credit cost, it is at an abysmally low level. So that is a very clear reflection. The credit cost is nothing but a derivative of what we have done in terms of the provisions and how good or bad is our asset book. So I think from that point of view, one is a LGD, second is a probability of default. Probability of default is a derivative of how we are underwriting. So I think on both the accounts, we have already demonstrated that when our asset quality has improved significantly quarter after quarter, we are not having any challenge whatsoever. You would have observed that our non-NPA provisions are as high as more than 35,000 crores. So when we are having a profit numbers like this, then a much lower number spread over 5 years' time would hardly be any impact for us.
Well, that is the SBI chief. Good quarter there coming in for State Bank of India, and a good quarter for ITC as well, meeting street expectations on the back of a robust growth in Q4. FMCG revenue grew more than 19%, margins the highest reported by the company. Cigarette volume growth in line with estimates. Agriculture revenue, though, declined 18%. Mangalam standing by with the latest. Mangalam, take us through ITC's numbers. What's been the highlight?
Well, these are largely in-line set of numbers coming in from the cigarette business for ITC this time around. I'm just looking at the cigarette revenue growth that's coming at around 14%. The street was working with a number around 15-odd%. So this means that the volume growth for the company has been around 11 to 12%. Again, largely in line with expectations of 12 to 13%. The cigarette operational performance has seen an improvement about 14% year on year. Again, in line with expectations of 15 to 16%. What really has stood out this time around from an ITC number standpoint, of course, hotels has grown in triple digits as against a 40 to 50% growth expectation. But that, again, does not surprise the street as much, given the sort of numbers that we've seen from Indian Hotels and Lemon Tree. The star of the numbers this time around for me is the FMCG business. That has shown a revenue growth of 19%. And for the first time ever, the FMCG EBIT has reported a double-digit margin. So that's a margin of around 10.2%. That's a big positive. So this is something that we'll have to watch out for. ITC is finally moving away from the shadows of the tobacco business and coming onto its own in the FMCG pack. So that really, is something that my key takeaway from these numbers would be. Volume growth, nothing really to worry about. The agri business has seen a decline of about 18-odd%. Again, the street was working with a decline of around mid-teens, largely because of a high base. And, the wheat export has been banned this time around as well. So wheat exports were there in the base quarter. The other businesses of the company, the paperboards business has shown some sort of moderation. But while on a reported basis, just the P&L has been largely in line with expectations. The cigarette volumes in line with expectations. The FMCG really stands out, with the hotel business reporting a near doubling of revenues on a favorable base. Let's see whether that continues or not.
All right, Mangalam, many thanks for joining us. And we're not done with earnings yet. Indigo's parent company, Interglobe Aviation, posting a profit of more than 900 crore rupees, revenue up 75% in Q4. This has largely been driven by higher demand for air travel. The company's CEO, Peter Elbers, said the company expects high growth in the next quarter, higher than the previous financial year, adding that the company has an order book of close to 500 aircraft. They have a steady flow of aircraft coming in. That's Indigo for you. And global earnings. Walmart's earnings per share and revenue ahead of Wall Street expectations in the January to March quarter, following which the retail giant has raised its full-year guidance. Walmart has seen strong international sales growth in the quarter, led by double-digit growth in its China and Mexico divisions, as well as back home in Flipkart. Also, PhonePe, which is majority owned by Walmart, crossed an annualized payments volume of $1 trillion. The big newsmaker tonight, Amazon has plans to invest nearly $13 billion into its cloud business in India by 2030. Amazon Web Services is doubling down on its India bet, and the global CEO of AWS believes that India is, and I quote, absolutely critical to the company's growth strategy. The move comes at a time when Amazon has scaled down some of its services in India. It's shut down its online learning platform, food delivery and wholesale distribution business. Speaking exclusively to CNBC-TV18, AWS CEO Adam Silipsky said there is tremendous optimism about the cloud business growth in India. He also spoke about Amazon's big bet on artificial intelligence and Amazon's plans to democratize generative AI.
I'm very pleased to announce today that AWS plans to invest an additional $12.7 billion in our local cloud infrastructure in India by 2030. So on top of the existing investment, we'll be investing another 12.7 for a total of $16.4 billion by the year 2030. And finally, I'll just say we're also working really hard on upskilling India's digital workforce. It's a critical initiative. There's going to be a big lack of cloud skills, a big gap between what's needed and the available workforce over the coming years. And we're trying to help close that gap.
You know, which are the sectors that you believe are the most vulnerable in terms of the challenges that we're seeing today? Where do you believe the spends are being impacted the most?
Well, I think you've seen some amount of this happening across industries. I wouldn't say it's any one country. I wouldn't say it's any one sector. And, again, I don't think there's any real new news here in terms of the very unusual economy and number of surprises the world has had the past few years, ranging from the pandemic to, of course, all of the impacts of the war in Ukraine and the impact that that's had. But we still see tremendous signs of optimism. So just to stick with financial services, I was very recently in India, as I mentioned, and spent time with many of the largest banks there. And just one exciting example is Axis Bank. So, of course, Axis is the third largest private sector bank in India, and they've selected AWS as their primary cloud provider. And they're going to work with us to accelerate their digital transformation. And in fact, the bank plans to migrate 70% of their total workloads to the cloud over the next 2 years.
Now, how much of a bet are you willing to make on AI, and how large of a focus is that likely to be? Your competitor, Microsoft, for instance, the CFO is talking about AI service tools adding about 1 percentage point to revenue, as well as revenues in Q2. Now, what could this typically mean for AWS going forward? How large of an AI bet are you willing to take?
We're making extremely large bets in AI and in machine learning in general. Amazon has actually been a leader in machine learning and AI for literally decades. If you go back to the late 1990s, personalization on the AWS retail website is really artificial intelligence. And in 2017, we launched SageMaker, which is an AWS machine learning platform that has over 100,000 AWS customers and is the leading machine learning platform in the world. We have a lot of experience. We've been investing in AI for years. There are foundation models, LLMs, as folks are calling these large language models, in operation today inside of Amazon, powering Alexa, powering search on the retail site. But Amazon intends to double down, triple down on all of these investments and to continue to really be a leader in generative AI. We do think that virtually every application that people see, that people interact with, will be transformed in some way by generative AI. And we know it's really important for our customers that we be the provider of those solutions to them. So we've actually recently announced a bunch of innovations already across the generative AI space. One of the biggest is Amazon Bedrock, which is a new, easy way to scale and build enterprise-ready generative AI applications. So the idea here is that we're trying, just like AWS has tried to democratize IT for over 17 years, we're going to democratize generative AI.
And you can catch that full interview with AWS CEO Adam Silipsky at 9:30 p.m. right here on CNBC-TV18. The government has decided to rejig the Law Ministry, removing both Kiren Rijiju as Minister and SP Baghel as the Minister of State. Rijiju, whose 2-year stint has been marked by frequent run-ins with the judiciary, has been assigned the Earth Sciences portfolio. Baghel has been shifted to the Health Ministry. The Minister of State, Arjun Ram Meghwal, has been assigned independent charge of the Law Ministry. This is in addition to his existing portfolios. Ashmit Kumar joins us now with the details. Ashmit, Rijiju and the judiciary shared a difficult relationship during the course of his stint. Tell us more about the flashpoints.
Kiren Rijiju. He became a household name with his tussle against the judiciary, often making headlines. But did that work against him? An order from President Murmu has cut short Kiren Rijiju's tenure as Law Minister. After 22 fiery months at the Ministry of Law and Justice, he has now been charged with Ministry of Earth Sciences. He has been replaced by former MOS Finance Arjun Ram Meghwal. He has been picked as an MOS with independent charge. But a look back at Rijiju's 22-month tenure reveals flashpoints that caused public fire and fury. The first point of friction was the collegium system of appointing judges. The Supreme Court held public hearings questioning the government for not approving names recommended by the collegium. Rijiju said here, and I quote, "Never say that the government is sitting on the files, then don't send the files to the government. You appoint yourself, you run the show then." He further questioned the judges, claiming that judges are appointed once. They don't have to face elections. Judges can't even be scrutinized by the public. The Supreme Court was firm in its response in the public hearing. The Supreme Court took exception to these comments. It reminded the centre that collegium was the law of the land and finally warned that it won't be shy of taking action. Flashpoint number 2. Now, while the Supreme Court was conducting these very public hearings on judicial appointments, Rijiju wrote to the CJI. In that letter, Rijiju sought for government presence on the Search-cum-Evaluation Committee. Now, this was quite brazen, given as how back in 2015, the Supreme Court had already struck down the NJAC Act. Flashpoint number 3. In November of 2021, the Collegium had recommended that Saurabh Kirpal, an openly gay advocate, be elevated to a High Court judge. Now, a year later, the centre sent the file back with objections from RAW. One objection that had been raised was that he's open about his sexual orientation. Now, the Supreme Court came down firmly on this. It released a resolution revealing the RAW objection and went on to reiterate its recommendation. The very next day, Kiren Rijiju called for a press conference and slammed the Supreme Court for revealing the objections that had been raised by RAW. Flashpoint number 4. Now, Rijiju also hit out at retired judges making comments against the government. In one such comment, he said, and I quote, "Even after retiring, a judge should maintain the sanctity. Some retired judges maybe unknowingly participate in some programs that are sponsored by anti-government forums." And flashpoint number 5, another low point in the centre-Supreme Court relations was comments made by Rijiju advising the Supreme Court on what cases should be heard. He said, and I quote here again, "If the Supreme Court of India starts hearing bail applications, if the Supreme Court of India starts hearing frivolous PILs, it will definitely cause a lot of extra burden." Soon enough, in open court, the CJI remarked that no case is too small for the Supreme Court and no case is too big. If we do not act in matters of personal liberty and grant relief, then what are we doing here? Now, interestingly, along with Rijiju, MOS for Law, that's SP Singh Baghel, has also been shipped out of the Law Ministry. He will now take charge as MOS for the Health Ministry, a complete change in the composition of leadership at the Law Ministry. Arjun Ram Meghwal now has taken charge of the Law Ministry. Kiren Rijiju has extended his wishes, but given the recent friction with the courts, Meghwal will have to call on all his experience from public administration to politics to avoid the fate of his 2 immediate predecessors.
Ashpit, many thanks for joining us. Kiren Rijiju moved out of the Law Ministry. Now, the Supreme Court has upheld laws allowing Jallikattu, Kambala and bull cart racing in the states of Tamil Nadu, Karnataka and Maharashtra. The Supreme Court today upheld the constitutional validity of amendments made to the central law against cruelty to animals by these states. However, the court said it would not get into the issue of whether Jallikattu is an integral part of the Tamil culture, leaving the matter to lawmakers. The union government's investigation against 17 EV companies for alleged violation of the FAME scheme is nearing completion. The government is likely to start releasing subsidies for those companies that were not found guilty of any violation. Further, we learn from sources that the government is likely to reduce the demand incentives for electric two-wheelers from 40% of the vehicle cost to 15%. So that's quite a sharp cut that's being proposed there. Parikshit is standing by now with more details. So, Parikshit, several important aspects there. Of course, a decision is yet to be taken. But one is this massive cut that is expected as far as the FAME incentive is concerned. And this is well before the expiry of the scheme in 24.
Well, that's right. And the Ministry of Heavy Industries, in fact, the Union Minister today told us on record that, yes, consultations have happened and very soon they will take a decision on extending the scheme and the allocation in the scheme as well. But that has come on the guarantee that the subsidy per vehicle will be brought down from 40% to 10%. So that is indeed a drastic cut. But we believe that 2,000 crores, which was allocated for two-wheelers under the FAME scheme, has exhausted, and an additional 1,500 crores will be allocated by taking away the funds that were earmarked for the electric three-wheeler program. The Minister for Heavy Industry is also telling us that the FAME scheme in its final year will focus extensively on electric two-wheelers and public transport, that is electric buses as well. In the next 2 to 3 days, they will put out a notification on the restructured FAME scheme. But on the question of extension beyond March 2024, the minister went on to say that all options are on table to support electric mobility. Coming to the investigations, the minister telling us that the probe against 17 companies is nearing completion. They will soon start disbursing subsidies in a matter of days. But there will be companies like Hero Electric and Okinawa who will have to pay up and pay the government at least 250 crores, which has been misappropriated. And this has been a violation of the Atmanirbhar Bharat program of the government as well. At the same time, there are companies like Ola Electric, Ather, TVS, Hero Motorcorp that will be returning funds to the public as well. So net-net, those investigations coming to an end. The funds will now be disbursed to electric vehicle manufacturers, and the restructured FAME scheme will also be put out in public domain very soon.
All right, Parikshit, many thanks for joining us. We will head into a break, but up next, the Finance Ministry defends its move of bringing international transactions through credit cards under the liberalised remittance scheme, saying there should be no differential treatment between debit cards and credit cards. More when we return.
You know, people often ask me why I left my steady job at the call center. I wanted more out of life. So, I launched my own startup. Do you want to know how? Then start up your own business as an LIC agent. You want it, we've got it. Great products, zero investment, leading organization, and unlimited opportunities. So, are you ready? Now think big. Become an LIC agent.
Visit our website or contact your nearest LIC branch.
Let's you and me step out and see how blue the sky, how tall the trees. Cause forever.
Skoda brings you Kushaq and Slavia, India's safest family cars.
A quick check of some of the other headlines tonight. The United States Food and Drug Administration has begun inspecting Torrent Farmers' manufacturing facility in Dahej in Gujarat. Sources say the inspection that began earlier this week is a routine examination of manufacturing practices. The company has not yet responded to CNBC-TV18's queries. More pharma news. Pfizer has advised doctors in India to stop using 3 of its life-saving antibiotics for hospitalized patients, especially those in intensive care units. The company has said that deviations have been observed in the manufacturing of these drugs. The manufacturer is currently investigating the matter, according to Pfizer. Cash-strapped airline Go First could resume some domestic flights by the end of May or by the 15th of June. Sources have told CNBC-TV18 the airline is looking to resume operations with a small fleet size of less than 10 aircraft. The possible route the airline is looking to take is Delhi to Mumbai, Delhi to Bengaluru and Delhi to Chennai. The Finance Ministry has issued clarifications on the liberalised remittance scheme today. The ministry, through a list of FAQs, has defended its decision to bring international credit card spends under the LRS. Government has also said that foreign remittances under LRS have doubled between FY21 and FY23 to $24 billion, with 50% spends under the scheme coming from overseas travel alone. Sapna joins us now with more. Sapna, this has, of course, led to a big backlash from consumers. The ease of doing business and the ease of living being questioned as well. The Finance Ministry defending its move.
Yes, and in pretty strong words. And let's look at the argument that has been used by the government on many fronts. So first, what they're saying is that since there was an exemption given to the use of credit cards for international travel and stay, that exemption has been misused because a lot of cards have been issued above the LRS limit of $2.5 lakh. So that was one large issue. Also, payments by debit cards have been treated as LRS even earlier, which means all other modes of electronic transaction have been under this cap, but credit cards were the only exemption, so to speak. Third, and very important, RBI since quite some time has been telling the government that they need equity of treatment between the credit cards and debit cards in terms of usage of forex abroad, because they need uniformity and equity in the treatment of modes of withdrawal of forex. Also need to capture total spend under LRS for prudent forex management and prevent the bypassing of LRS limits. So here I think the regulator has also played a very important role, and government has gone along with that. Last but not the least, even if you look at it in terms of the remittances, there has been a big jump. FY23 over FY21, $24 billion. It was just $12 billion in FY21. So it's more than double, and 50% of that is coming through the international travel route. So this is one big argument, defense, reasoning that has been put out by Finance Ministry. They're not going to go back on this proposal at all. No way. The second thing also they've clarified in terms of why the TCS rate has been raised, and that reply is also pretty interesting. They're saying that wherever a 20% TCS is applicable, you can have some adjustments in your advance tax payments. That's one. Second, this is not a very exorbitant rate, especially for people who are on that 20% and 30% income tax bracket. That's the kind of that's the kind of observation that has come through from government. No going back on this, and we'll have to wait and watch and see that how this really impacts your travel, your transactions, the value of transactions, so on and so forth.
Right, Sapna, many thanks for joining us. That is the government's defense and the government's argument supporting the decision to bring credit card spends under the LRS. But the issue really is of that 20% TCS, which has bothered the common citizen. Now, tax experts believe the decision to bring forex credit card spends under the LRS is a change for both people and merchants. Take a look.
There will be a TCS of 20%, which was earlier actually 5%. And of course, on the credit card, nobody was, tracking that. But now, effective 1st July, you swipe your credit card when you are actually overseas or even sitting in India. If you do that, then obviously it gets, it becomes part of $250,000 of limit. It's a big change, not just for all of us, but even for the merchant or for the credit card issuers.
Now, the suspense over the next Karnataka Chief Minister is over after hectic deliberations that went on for 4 days. The Congress party has chosen Siddaramaiah as the Chief Minister and D.K. Shivakumar as the Deputy Chief Minister. He will also continue as the state's party chief. Both leaders had staked their claims to the top post after Congress's emphatic win in the Assembly. The swearing-in is expected to be held on the 20th of May. Siddaramaiah tweeted that they will always join hands to protect the interests of Kannadigas. He wrote the Congress party will work as a family to provide transparent and corruption-free governance.
Everything is well. Everything will be well, is going to be well. We had made a one-line resolution that whatever the High Command will take a decision, we'll abide by it. Ultimately, Rahulji called me and said, you all have to work together. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge called us and gave this dikat. We all have accepted whatever the formula has been generated.
Well, that is D.K. Shivakumar, the Deputy Chief Minister, to be sworn in on the 20th of May. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned. The news continues here on CNBC-TV18.
Friends.